Yes, Brother Sam. I sure didn't. I'm sorry. Brother Sam went to see John Boyd today, and Brother John is not doing well. Matter of fact, actually, they've got him in a hospital bed, and they have him catheterized, and he's just not doing good. I mean, he's slipping away fast. So just ask for God's intervention and there, and Brother John, and for his family as well, as they go through this difficult time, because God can use even the death of a loved one to reach people for Jesus. You know what I'm saying? And he's already demonstrated that in this family. So that having been said, take your Bibles, open them with me, please, to the book of Exodus. The book of Exodus. We're in chapter 22, and we are down, I think, about verse 20, aren't we? Yeah, verse 20. Hang on just a second. It's going to take me a few minutes to get down these slides. And, of course, we've been talking about the civil law within the children of Israel, the state of Israel. And it's actually civil law that is really applicable to the entire cultural system, all cultures. Not just theirs, but all cultures. Today's 18th, isn't it? Okay, all right. So I'm on the right slide then. Good deal. So we had talked about immorality. As a matter of fact, actually, we talked about idolatry. We talked about all those different things and immorality as well. And we were in that discussion when we ended up last week. Now, I asked you in verse 20, it said, what is the penalty for idolatry or for worshiping false gods? Anybody? It's death. Is that not right? Matter of fact, actually, somebody read me verse 20 in an outside voice. Can somebody do that for me?
And if a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod...
Wait a minute. Oh, chapter 22, verse 20. But you're close, I bet. Okay, it was in the Bible. All right. All right, go ahead, bro. Verse 20, yeah. Okay. So what is the punishment now? Death. It's utter destruction. Is that not right? And that basically is probably the harshest punishment that you can get. All right. Now, I asked you the question last week, why was the punishment so harsh for worshiping false gods? Anybody remember any of your answers? He is a jealous God. That's exactly right. Won't allow any other gods before him. Anybody? Okay. 10 Commandment. Absolutely. Anybody else? Who delivered them out of Egypt? You know, the rocks and the sticks and the twigs didn't do that, did they? God delivered them. So anybody that they give praise to is absolutely an open slap in the face to the Creator God. Now today when we say God, you better start defining terms, because you don't know who's talking about what. People say, well, I wish we could just get a prayer there in school. No, you don't want just any prayer in school. Because when they say God, they could be talking about Alibaba Temple of the Shrine. You know what I'm saying? They could be talking about the big fat guy at the Chinese restaurant. They can be all kinds of things. Is that not right? You need to worry about you don't even need to worry about prayer in school. You need to worry about prayer in your home. That's what you need to be worried about. Because if you'll teach them at home, it don't matter what school does. They're going to do whatever they're taught at home. All right? But anyway, the idea is that guess what? God says, hey, I'm jealous. You're not going to put somebody else up here on a pedestal and say, this stick delivered me from Egypt. I delivered you from Egypt. And I don't want you to forget that. Now, I put a slide up here last week, and we didn't get a chance to finish it. So that's where kind of I'm going. 2 Peter 2:20 says, for if after they have escaped the pollutions of the world through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they are again entangled therein and overcome, the latter end is worse with them than the beginning. Okay? We talked about that last week, and we asked how that was possible. You remember I explained to you that a Christian who is out of fellowship with God will try to fit back into the world. The world don't want them. You know what I'm saying? So they try to outdo the world. Let me show you how bad I am. Okay? Let me show you how foul my mouth can be. Why? Hoping the world will say, oh yeah, they're just like us. When the world says, hey, this is the guy that got the religion. All right? They don't come to church. Why? Because they don't feel comfortable here, right? They feel out of place. So he said the latter end is worse than it was in the beginning. It would have really been better had they not known than to know the way and refuse it. Does that make any sense? Now, I want to take you to another passage of Scripture. This is in Romans chapter 1. Romans chapter 1. Go back over to the New Testament. And if you have the right kind of Bible, it's on page 975. If you don't have the right kind of Bible, I don't know what page it's on. I just know it's in the New Testament. Okay? Romans chapter 1. It's not on that page. Okay. Okay. The Pew Bible. It ain't even that page on the Pew Bible, is it? Okay. All right. Romans chapter 1. Say amen when you get there. Amen. Okay. Let's go to verse 18 and we'll try and wander through this. I'll do my best to get through this tonight. All right. Verse 18 says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Does anybody have a different version of this? No, that's all King James? Nobody has a different version? Does anybody's Bible, a study Bible maybe, what's he saying here? Let me start with that. What's he saying?
18.
Verse 18, yes, sir.
It says, all people need the gospel because they are under God's wrath, which stems from his holy revulsion to sin. Mankind originally knew God and had fellowship with him. The history of the world reveals a sequential regression and loss of moral knowledge. Since the Garden of Eden, people have been unrighteous, and they have suppressed the truth.
Okay.
18.
Okay, that's good. And that's good. Did y'all catch that? And the last part of that verse is what I'm looking for. In your Bible, in the King James Bible, where it says, holds the truth in unrighteousness. How can you hold the truth in unrighteousness? Because if it's the truth, it ain't unrighteous. Is that not right?
Right, but maybe that means that if you know what the truth is, but you disregard it,
Okay.
that's worse than not knowing what the truth is.
Okay. All right, here's the deal. All right, that word hold, somebody said it's suppressed, to hold down, to almost like slavery, okay? Because, right, what we're going to find out is when they knew what could be known of God, they chose not to believe that, not to trust it. Now think about this for a minute, okay? What is an example of that? Okay, think about global warming, okay? They proved that that was a hoax from the very beginning, okay? All the emails where it was, and they didn't get upset about the fact that it was a hoax. They got upset about the fact that somebody hacked into their email account, okay? But here's the deal. Why would they being culture, the society, the science crowd, why would they hold back the truth? Sorry? Okay, didn't want to be proven that they were wrong. Jimmy, did you say something? Okay, they had an agenda. That's very good. Anybody else? Money. Kenny, just cut to it, buddy. It's the money. Okay? All right, that's our 20-something crowd over there, all right? Anybody else? Anybody else? Because Kenny is absolutely right. Well, think about this for a minute, okay? And I'm going to dwell on the money thing for just a minute, Kenny. Because here's the deal. You know, when you go to Harvard or one of them Ivy League schools and you get a degree in advanced basket weaving, and then you get out and you find out you can't get a job, nobody will pay you, you know what I'm saying, for advanced basket weaving. You got to have a job doing something, right? To pay off those $100 bazillion worth of debt so you could get through school, so they could tell you that God was dead. All right? So if you don't have a profession, here's the deal. Our government spends billions of dollars to find out whether a dolphin can talk to you. Now, I don't know about y'all, but we got some people who are starving to death in this country. But we're spending billions of dollars to find out, whether the dolphin is happy with his environment. Now, somebody made that job, all right? Could it possibly be that they don't want you to know the truth because if you know the truth, they're going to be without a job? I.e., Kenny, the money. Because let me tell you something. These people are not making $3.50 an hour. These people are getting grants for 6 figures and plus. Now, when you start doing that, let me tell you something. Your research has to become important. And if we're all going to die, because, it's what killed the dinosaurs and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? Then it becomes important. But if it's just a bunch of hoax, not so much. Now, think about this for a minute. I'm going to fast forward here into our century and our time. Think about this whole thing with Russia. You know what I'm saying? To the average person looking at this, okay, this is as plain as the nose on your face. I've never understood how the swamp can have so many people who are educated beyond their intelligence. Okay? But they do. I mean, they seriously do. All right? Because here's the deal. Now, this thing's been going on almost a year. All right? January will be a year. All right? They ain't found no collusion yet. But let me ask you a question. Do you think if any of those lawyers up there that are involved in this thing, do you think they're going to turn their pay in when they don't find anything? Let me ask you a question. Most of y'all are at least as old as I am. Many of you are older than I am. Have you ever known a time when Russia didn't try and interfere with the United States? Have you ever known a time when the United States didn't try and interfere with Russia? We've always been at odds. Is that not right? Now all of a sudden we wake up and we go, oh, I can't believe they were trying to interfere in the election. You think? How bright do you have to be? But yet we're throwing we the people are throwing billions of dollars at fake news. Does that make any sense? Am I just crazy or is this obvious? Okay? And I'd like this to get to a point where all these frivolous lawsuits where the guy goes in and says, oh, your hamburger was too hot and I burnt my tongue and I want $50 billion. I would love for them to say, okay, you can go in and do any lawsuit you want to. But if you lose, you're paying the court cost. You're paying for that judge that's making $150 million a minute. You're going to pay for all those people who had to stay out of work to be here to listen to this frivolous. You're going to pay for that. Now, if we did that, brother, we could cut that court stuff down real quick. But because anybody can walk in and say, look, my big toe is bigger than this other. It's the doctor's fault that delivered me. Let me sue him for $50 bazillion. It's just that absolutely, Y'all remember the Ma and Pa Kettle things? All right. Ma and Pa Kettle come to town. All right. Ma is pregnant. Gives birth to twins. Now, Ma and Pa Kettle, neither one were really bright. Would it surprise you if the twins weren't really bright? But somehow or another, that's the doctor's fault. Excuse me? Yeah, it's his fault. This is the culture in which we live in because the truth is suppressed. Now, if you don't believe that, go to a court and listen to a case. But you can't tell him that. Well, wait a minute. The guy killed killed the household cat before he killed his whole family. He's been doing that for killing pets for years. Yeah, but we're not going to let that in. That don't apply to this cat. Excuse me? That doesn't establish his character? If he's been doing it for 5 years, does it surprise you that, he killed one of his family members and ate their heart? It shouldn't. It shouldn't, but it does. Everybody goes, oh, can't believe that happened. Knuckleheads. It's just because you remember what Jesus said about the truth? You shall know the truth, and the truth what? It's exactly right. But if you suppress it, what happens? And the reason we do that is because here's the deal. Remember why I told you man does not want to admit there's a God? Because if there is a God, and there is a God, man now becomes responsible for the way he or she lives. If there is no God, we can do whatever we want to because we are God. Anybody remember that statement? You shall be as God. Anybody remember that? I think that was somewhere over around page 1, maybe page 3. And it's still going on today. Is that not right? Okay. But let's press on here. I digress and idle here too long. Okay? Look with me in verse 19. He says this. He says, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath shown it unto them. For the invisible things from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Verse 21. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Well, let's back up. Okay? Let's back up to verse 19. All right? As he comes down through here, he says, guess what? They withheld the truth because what they could know of God was revealed in them. What does he mean? Anybody? Because what they could know of God had been revealed in them. Anybody? Nobody. Crickets. Right? All right, think about this for a minute. Okay? He said those very people that will hold back the knowledge of God, he said God can be revealed inside of them. Now, how can God be revealed inside of a human being? Especially with some of the horrible things human beings do. The psalmist said this, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Now, Brother Jim's talking to you about diabetes. And if you don't have diabetes, you ought to be so very, very thankful that you don't have it. Okay? Because here's the deal. Something as simple as an organ in your body, the pancreas, produces insulin. All right? When you eat something, everything you eat turns into sugar. All right? It releases enough insulin so that the cells in your body can take that, because whether you realize it or not, food is just not buffet. It ain't just big, ugly, fat fellas eating together, okay? Food is the fuel your body uses, okay? Now, when you're like Munchkin down here, eat a bottle, go to sleep. Everything works just like it should. When you get like her fat grandpa, guess what happens? The cells become resistant to the insulin, and although your pancreas may make enough, the cells won't let the food be absorbed. This is why a diabetic is always thirsty. Matter of fact, actually, a diabetic can dehydrate faster than anybody else because the cells will not let the water into them, right? So they're drinking, you're thirsty all the time. It's cotton mouth. I call it cotton mouth, okay? Now, they tell us, here, take this pill, well, in my case, this handful of pills, and this needle. And if you do this just right, everything will balance out. Right? Try that. Try impossible. It's either up or down. It's always something. You know what I'm saying? You're fatigued. When you get fatigued, when you get sick, all of those things affect. Now see, when you're working the way God designed you, perfect. When you're not and you're trying to control it, right? Because why? Because we're fearfully and wonderfully made. And let me tell you something. All this modern science and medical stuff, as wonderful as it is, they haven't even touched the surface to know what God knows. They know the triple helix. They know all DNA. They know how all of that. Oh, man, we're wonderful. I heard a joke one time. These scientists got together and said, challenge God to a duel. Said, hey, told God, said, we'll make human life. We can do it now. We have the technology. God said, really? He said, yeah. He said, I'd like to see that. He said, no problem. So the scientist bent over and got him up a handful of dirt. God said, no. Make your own dirt. Now think about that for a minute now. Because the idea, because God takes nothing and makes something out of it. Matter of fact, he makes perfection out of nothing. Okay? Because it's about his power. All right? So now then, if it can be revealed in them, what can we know by looking into the human body? I cannot believe that people are educated and are so stupid. You know what I'm saying? Y'all ever seen a turkey farm out there when it's raining? A turkey will stand and look straight up till it drowns. That's how bright a turkey is. Okay? You want to ever wonder why you have them on the meal table? That's why, because they're not smart enough to run away. All right? But think about this for a minute now. Can you look into your body? I mean, just what little bit we know and can understand, and think for a minute this was an accident? Oh, these two things bumped together, and then it was a pollywog, and then it turned into a frog, and then the tail fell off, and it... That's like taking your watch and crushing it up into a million pieces and shooting it into outer space and saying, okay, in about 50 bazillion years, it'll come together and be a watch. I don't have enough faith to believe that. But I do know this. I know that our God is the creator. And everything in the universe that I want you to understand, every mathematical formula, every law of nature is in absolute perfect balance. And if you think that that can happen by accident, you know, scientists tell us, hey, you know, if we were 5 miles closer to the sun, we'd burn up. If we were 2 miles further away, we'd be an ice cube. Reckon it got there by accident? I can't reckon that it goes through the seasons. The earth tilts on its axis. I mean, it does that, and the planets don't bump into one another? Think about that for just a minute. But yet man says what? Can't be no God. But they can tell you how complex the universe is. That happened by accident? I'm sorry, but if you believe that, that's just crippled too high for crutches. I don't care what your science teacher taught you or whatever. I can't believe it. It just doesn't, it isn't there. Now listen to this. Look at verse 21. Or 20 rather. He says, for the invisible things of him, and this is God now, from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Okay? He says God can be seen where? All right? God can be clearly seen and yet not seen. What is he saying? Anybody? Nobody. All right? Okay. By looking at the perfection in the creation. Now, don't go away from here. Go down the street and tell somebody, our preacher said that God's nature. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you God's fingerprints are all over creation. Okay? But what I'm trying to tell you is that guess what? He says, Paul tells the Romans, he says, look, if you would just but look out there and ponder for just a moment how that tree knows to shed its leaves, let the sap go down in the ground till the winter is over, And then without somebody with an alarm clock saying, gee, by the way, how about let that sap come back? It by itself regenerates itself. If you can't look at that and know that didn't happen by accident, if you can't see that and see God's hands all over it, and he said, you know what you can know? What can we know by looking at nature? We can know that God is perfect order. Is that right? There is no confusion with God. It is perfect order in the way he does things. God makes things that last. Think about animals now. Somebody's going to say, oh, about evolution. Now, think about natural selection and adaptation. Think about that for a minute now. Because I know some birds, guess what? They can't fly. I know some other people who can't jump. But still, all right. A penguin lives in the coldest part of the world and has got flippers instead of wings. But it's a bird. Ever figured that out? Because God has designed nature to do what? Be able to adapt, right? So that it just doesn't go extinct. So that, guess what? That it will continue to perpetuate itself. If you can't see that about God and about the Godhead and his power, you're just not looking. You've chosen to close your eyes, which is what verse 18 says about holding the truth in unrighteousness. You've said, I don't want to see it. Okay? Now I got to press on because we're not going to get through this tonight. Whew. All right? Where am I at? 22, we won't go through that. It says, and change the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man and to birds and to four-footed beasts and creeping things. Now, let me ask you this. Am I in 23? What'd I say? Did I say 22? I went to 23. Did y'all read it? You want me to read it again? Okay. I don't want to lose you now. We're still in the Bible. All right. Y'all put up your People magazine and stuff because you're on the wrong page. Okay. All right. It says, and change the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man and to beasts and four-footed beasts. Four-footed beasts, birds, four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Okay. Now, think about this for a minute. Why does man, think about Greek mythology for just a minute. Why are all the gods in Greek mythology look like men and women? I mean, really, they do. And they act like a bunch of spoiled kids is what they act like. But still, in Greek mythology, right, Zeus and all that, they were all had a human form. Is that right? Now, that's what he just said. He said that they changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image like a corruptible man. Why? Yes and no. Okay? Yes and no. I agree with that to a point, Miss Carla. But think about this. Don't let me answer my own question.
If you got guys acting like humans, then, if you act that same way, then what can you be held accountable for?
Okay? I'll go with that. Anybody else? Nobody else. Crickets. Do what? Say it again, son.
If you give the gods human characteristics, and you act the same way as that God does, then how can you be held accountable for anything? Because you say the same concept that, well, that God acts that way, I can act that way.
Y'all catch that? Because here's the deal. Guess what? Guess what secular humanists have always done? It is always to bring man or God down to us. Because when we say, but God thinks like we do. Y'all ever heard this? Well, that don't make no sense. It don't make no sense to us. Okay? Y'all ever told anybody that you ever tithe? I can't, they're crazy, lost their mind. Go down there and give my hard-earned money down there at that church. That preacher's too fat already. I ought to starve him a little bit. You ever heard that? I have. That's just absolutely, that makes no sense whatsoever. Take my money down there and give it someplace, group of people all get together and all they want to do is eat. Well, here's the deal. To the lost, you will never understand the ways of God, and you will never explain it to them. that will always be foolishness to them. Because here's the deal. They're thinking with this. See, God knows the end from the beginning. Because he knows everything. So when he says, don't do this, what he's trying to tell you is, I'm trying to keep you from something that's going to turn your life upside down. Now, we look at it from the human perspective, and we say, he just don't want us to have no fun.
Don't tell me what to do.
Don't tell me what to do. So we're forever pulling God down to our level, when in reality, the psalmist said his way of doing things was what? Beyond our understanding. We can't figure out what he's doing. You ever been through a situation in your life and you say, man, Lord, I don't know what's going on here, but it ain't going to be good. And when by the time you get to the end of it, after the tears and the crying and the suffering, what do you find out? God was doing what? That's exactly, he was bringing you to a place that unless you had been through whatever it was he allowed in your life, you'd have never got there. Now, when we're going through it, can the fish understand what's going on when he's in the frying pan? He'll never know how good he tastes. On the other end, if the batter is right, he's good. Well, see, sometimes when we're in the frying pan, we're so focused on trying to get out of the frying pan that we forget that God doesn't let anything into our lives by accident. There's a purpose here. Now, I'm not going to tell you that we understand it. I'm not going to tell you that we may know it. God may not choose to reveal it to us on this side of heaven. We don't know. I've had people ask me, hey, what do you tell your mother who looks at you and says, you're my pastor, tell me why your brother died? Parents aren't supposed to bury their children. How do you answer that? And then bury another one 18 months later. You're the pastor. Tell me why. All I can tell you is I don't know. I don't know. I can't figure out the mind of God. But I know this. I know that he promised that he'd never leave me. I know that he promised, because my brothers were Christians, that one day, guess what? I was going to get to meet them again. I know that, guess what? They suffered those last years before they died, but they ain't suffering now. These are all the things that I know. Why he took them when he took them, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. You know why? Because I'm not God. And I don't pretend to be him. But see, mankind says, hey, if I can bring you down here, then what I can tell people is, you're just like me. You think just like me. Sorry. He doesn't think like us. And he doesn't purpose like we purpose. This is why God says, leave revenge to me. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Because we don't do vengeance well. We don't do vengeance at all. We shouldn't. God is the only one that says, hey, I'll make it. You see, God's vengeance is trying to get people to come back. Our vengeance is doing what?
Take them out.
Push them out. That's it. Take them out if you get a chance. I like that, Bill. Spoken just like an ex-Green Beret. Okay. All right, let's look here at verse 24. It says, wherefore, because they did all of this, wherefore God gave them up to uncleanliness through the lusts of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshiped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their heart, I'm sorry, my eyes are going on me. Lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves the recompense of their error, which was meat. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. Now, when you hear me preach on the alternative lifestyle, that's the verse I'm preaching from. Because what has God said? If you're involved in that lifestyle, what has happened? you have come to a point that you have changed the very things that God said would be. Okay? And so because you have gone against his order, it says that there comes to a point that he does what? I mean, if that's what you want, brother, knock yourself out. Now, let me ask you a question. The danger to this lifestyle is this. Now, somebody's going to say, well, we ought to go out and kill them all. Well, here's the deal. Think about this for just a minute, okay? Does God anywhere tell us not to love them? Absolutely does not. Matter of fact, we ought to love them probably more than everybody else. You know why? Because they need Jesus bad. We all need Jesus bad, but they need it bad. Okay? So we're not supposed to be out persecuting them and beating up on them and doing all that kind of stuff. But we are supposed to do what? Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. And then let God deal with them. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when Judgment Day comes, they're not going to be dealing with the preacher. They're not going to be dealing with Bethesda Baptist Church. They're going to stand before a holy and righteous God and give an account. And so are we all. Amen? So here's the deal. Think about it for a minute. There are some folks that are in that lifestyle. I don't know that they will ever convert. I was on the internet the other day and I was looking for a picture for one or two of these slides in here. And I came across a picture on there. It was a poster and it said, I am gay and I am a Christian. Now, something's wrong with that statement. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how that can be. But there's something wrong with that statement. And if you don't believe that, you know what I'm saying? All you have to do is go to this passage right here. Because it will tell you. Now, that ain't to beat somebody up. That ain't to say, hey, it's horrible, it's evil. You know, I don't know many families that it don't touch some way, shape, or form. Mine too. But that don't mean that I hate them. You know, I love them. And I hope and pray one day that they'll come to a point where they realize they need Jesus. But if you stop and think about it for a minute, if man wants God to come down to his level, then anything he does ought to be all right. Right? Okay? But because God is up here and says, don't do that, what has to happen? There's a consequence to your action. Now, think about this for a minute. Everybody said, well, we ought to do this and that and that. Okay? Let me ask you a question. The people that are involved in this lifestyle, outside of our knucklehead Supreme Court, do we ever have to worry about them having children? Don't work that way. That's not the way God designed it. Is that not right? So outside of recruitment, how then can they swell their ranks? Now, think about this for a minute, okay? This population in the United States represents 1% of the total population. Yet, think about the airtime they get for 1%. You know what I'm saying? Y'all remember, what was that thing in New York where it was the 1%ers? Wasn't that what that was? Where they were talking about we're the people ain't got nothing and y'all got everything, and it was 1%ers, 2%ers, something like that. I forget what it was. There's so many fads going on, it's hard to keep up with all of them. But anyway, was that, you know what I'm talking about? But you know, if you stop and you think about it for a minute, they didn't get that press. That don't just keep going on. They didn't get no parades. Where then does this come from? It goes back to what Kenny was talking about. It goes back to the money. That's exactly right. Because if enough money can be pumped into it, you don't have to drain the swamp, you can buy the swamp. And that's exactly what's happening. So, let's stop right here. I'm 5 minutes over. Did I bore y'all? I didn't mean to run you too far or rabbit you too far, okay? You know what I'm saying? 9 people done broke out the back door. I couldn't think he'd ever get finished. At least it was cool in here. How about that? That was pretty good, wasn't it? All right, well, y'all be careful going to the house. Have we got any meetings or anything like that?